Hello, everyone. Greg Diamond here, editor of 10 Stock Trader at Stansberry Research with another Diamond's Edge update and video for you. And this week, I'm going to keep things relatively simple. Basically, what I'm looking at, a unique market environment where we have overbought levels in some markets, index and sectors, and then oversold levels at the same exact time. And what does that mean? To me, what it means is buy weakness. I'm going to go over, some short-term time frames, kind of a worst-case scenario, but even the worst-case scenario doesn't mean that bad. Basically, buy weakness, okay? What I want to start with here, this is just a chart of the NASDAQ, and as you can see, down here on the RSI, over here is overbought, right? So does that mean that we're going to all of a sudden crash? I just don't think it does, and I'll show you why with some other markets that we'll look for at the end. But, I've highlighted this little incident right here. This is going back to late last year. I saw a nice run up, and I can zoom out here just to show you. We had the bottom in late October, November. We had the nice rally, and then kind of a similar situation, right? Had this overbought level, almost at the same level here around, call it just shy of 80. All right. And then, one day drop, a little bit of a rally, and then, call it a 5-6 day drop, and then boom, we're off to the races again. Right. So, is this a situation where I can see that happening again? It is. All right. Now, it'd be one thing to just say, well, history is going to repeat just because of what I think is a strong bull trend based on the RSI or another metric. And that's not, yes, I understand why some people will say, well, how could you say that? Well, this is also what I do is I take time as a factor, probably the most important factor, into consideration. And as you can see here, this would be, a bad scenario, okay? And I don't mean bad in actually a good way. It's like, okay, we're going to work off these overbought levels, just as we saw back late last year, okay? And then if that low, and I'll just give you a hypothetical here, okay? If that low happens into, let's say you see something like this, all right, into this July 12th to 19th area, that would be a situation where, I start getting really aggressive long. There's just no doubt about that. The absolute worst case scenario would be something like this, okay, where, let me delete this just to make it easier for you. But basically, this would be the worst case. I don't see this as a big, as a likely scenario, but one that I'll consider, okay? Let's say we drop down, we rally, we drop back down into this July, and that doesn't actually make a new high. Then you talk late August, okay? Even then, I mean, that would be, I can't begin to tell you how bullish I would be if this situation unfolds. For reasons that I'll get into when we get into August, okay? I'm just saying this is the worst case scenario if by chance I'm wrong on, what happens in the short term here. But again, best case scenario is we just, today or earlier this week, Monday, Tuesday, call it, we get maybe a little bit of a low similar to this situation back in, early January where it drops back down. We get this hook on the RSI lower, and then, everybody gets scared, and then we continue the rally again. We can see a similar thing in the semiconductors, NASDAQ, or NVIDIA obviously is on fire. There are other semiconductor stocks that I'm looking at. I'm not going to cover those. I'm reserving those for 10 Stock Trader paying subscribers, but a similar situation, okay? So essentially, it's buy the weakness. All right, now, why would I be saying that based on one of the most, a huge rally that we've seen? I think there's been a record number of days without a 2% correction, in the S&P 500. All right, well, let's look at another sector like the industrials. And I'm not going to look at the Dow. I'm actually going to look at XLI, which is a SPDR ETF. All right. Now look, relative to the NASDAQ, that's not terribly oversold, but it's definitely not overbought. If anything, this looks to me, and I've kind of labeled it here. You can say I not kind of labeled it. I did label it. You can see it here. Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right, and basically from this March April high. Okay. One big A, B, C, and then you can see I've labeled this wave 4 here. Yeah, maybe, again, a worst case scenario, or bad case rather, I should say, is we get something similar like I just outlined, maybe a low, and then it continues to, let me get the right one here. Okay, it continues to chop around, and then maybe we get that final low into that July 12th to 19th area, and then we finally rally. Okay, so this doesn't make me think that we're going to have this big crash. Okay, now if I saw the NASDAQ and the semiconductors and a chart like XLI and two other stocks that I'll get to in a second, if all of these things were all at 80 or above in the RSI, and there was just no fear in the market, I'd probably be a little concerned about a bigger pullback or a significant market event. But we're just not seeing that. There's actual still fear in the market about what's happening, and so I just don't. From a technical perspective, I put all that stuff aside and I look at this and I say, I'd be buying if I didn't know what Nvidia was doing. Let's put it that way. And I looked at this chart of XLI, I would buy. Okay, that just based on technicals and time, right? Okay, so within XLI, let me show you Caterpillar, one of my favorite stocks. It's been a tough trade. Over the last year or two, it's kind of had a mind of its own. But I want to show you something here that I found interesting. Okay, so from this top, the highest close here on April 5th to the lowest close here on June 14th was 49 traded days. 49 is the square of 7, 7 times 7. This is a Gann time factor based on how price operates. Okay, and then as you can see, and I'll delete this down here. But look, this is oversold. Right? And now we're starting to hook up again. Maybe, this correction is not just over and we see, maybe a dip into early this week or maybe something like this into that, July, and then a reality. So what? Again, that will probably create some type of positive divergence on the RSI, or, I'll scoot the CI up here. You can see how this is already diverging here. Even as price made a new low, the composite index is showing positive divergence. That's as bullish. You combine time with that, it really makes me want to buy it. Okay, so that's something in the industrial side that I'm looking at. Again, we see oversold versus some overbought. If whether it's the industrials like Caterpillar and the XLI catch up with NASDAQ, which is going to keep going, or we see the NASDAQ, and semiconductors and Nvidia, something like that, come back down to normal quote levels, where it's not just kind of going up every 1-2% every single day. Whatever that might be, it still tells me that this is a bullish setup, based on technicals, based on time. So those are some of the things that I'm going to be looking for over the next week or two. Again, maybe 2-3 weeks. Worst case is into August, but again, I just don't see that as a high probability right now. So overall, I'm bullish. That's what I'm looking for. If something changes over the next week or two where I'm like, okay, I was wrong, we need to reevaluate, then I'll be sure to let you know. But otherwise, this is a situation where I would be buying weakness. All right. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week.